Recently, I got a bunch of people to vote for what is the greatest Rubik's Cube solve of all time. I put out a YouTube poll consisting of 5 solves which I consider to be the greatest. And I also asked people to comment which one they voted for and why. Before I go through the 5 solves, let me explain the 2 criteria that went off. So the first one is that it has to be a world record or part of a world record average. I think this is fair enough. I mean, it doesn't really make sense for the greatest solve to be not a world record. And the second bit of criteria, which may be a bit controversial, is that I decided it has to be a 3x3 solve. Yeah, okay, guys, come on. I know. Just let me explain. Yes, there are many incredible legendary solves in other events, but 3x3 is just by far the most iconic. It's always the most relevant event, it's the most talked about, it's what people think of when they think of cubing. So I decided that the greatest solve has to be a 3x3 world record. If you disagree with me, then I'm sorry, but I was only able to put 5 solves in the poll, so I had to narrow it down somehow. Okay, let's go through these 5 solves. I'm gonna go in order from slowest to fastest. So the first solve is Eric Eric 7.08 world record single.
Yes!
This solve was done in 2008. Absolutely incredible solve, so iconic. It beat the previous record of 8.72, which was 2 months prior. So it was world record by 1.64 seconds. And this record stood for over 2 years. Until Felix Zemdex broke it. I believe when this solve first happened, a lot of people thought it would never be beaten, which is crazy to think about now because there's literally a solve half of that time. But still, it was such an amazing solve by Eric. It was so ahead of its time. And yeah, it's easily one of the most iconic solves of all time. Okay, solve number 2 is actually quite a big jump down. It's Lucas Eder's 4.90 world record single. So this solve was done in November 2015. This solve was absolutely insane for 2 main reasons. The first one being that it was the first solve under 5 seconds. And it beat Keaton Ellis's world record single that he got earlier that day. 2 3x3 world record singles on the same day. It was just unbelievable. Yeah, Keaton Ellis's one. So there are 4 rounds. And Keaton Ellis got world record single on the 2nd round. Lucas Eder got it on the 3rd round. So yeah, that's arguably the craziest day in 3x3 history. And yeah, it's the first sub 5 in history. It was just a huge moment in cubing. Solve number 3, Felix Zemdex 4.73 world record single. This was such a crazy solve, mainly for the fact that it broke Mass Volk's 4.74 by 0.01. And they were literally racing against each other when Felix got the record. It was just the maddest coincidence. And of course, the reaction from the crowd is so iconic. This solve might actually be the most watched in history. I might be wrong on that, but I think it might be. I mean, someone took the video, put it in slow motion, and got 10 times the views. So that probably helped. Also, the solve itself was so impressive, of course, and it's gone down as one of the most iconic, most famous solves in cubing history. Okay, solve number 4, Timon Koleszynski's resolve in his 4.86 world record average. Yeah, this one I felt like had a very good chance of winning. So this was done in July 2022. I'm sure most of you know the story by now, but I'll explain it anyway. The first sub 5 average has been chased around for so long, and Timon Koleszynski in this round, his first 3 solves were insane, and he gets world record average in his 4th solve. He got the first 4-second average, but then when he finished the average, it's found out that the 4th solve was mis-scrambled. So he does a replacement solve on an extra scramble, and this solve was it's the most you can't even put into words how impressive this solve is. So the actual time was 4.56, but his turning, it's perfection. He just executed it perfectly. I'll never understand how he did that in that much pressure. It was just the perfect way to pull off the world's first sub 5 average. And of course the reaction from the crowd was amazing. So here's the thing, I think everyone can agree that this was the most impressive solve on this list. But greatest and most impressive, they're 2 different things. Greatest is what's the most iconic solve, the craziest solve that got everyone talking about it. So yeah, this is likely the most impressive solve of all time, but is it the greatest though? Find out soon. So the fifth and final solve, Yushen Du's 3.47 world record single. So this is the current world record single, which was done November 2018. So 5 years ago. Well, almost 5 years ago. And it's still standing, which is crazy. I'm pretty sure it'll be beaten this year though. But okay, let's talk about the solve. So Yushen Du, Chinese cuber, he was very not well known, but then out of the blue, he just gets the first sub 4 and first sub 3.5 single, breaking Felix Zemdeg's 4.22 record by 0.75, which is the largest drop of the world record since Eric Ackersteig's 7.08, which was 10 years prior. Yes, this solve was quite lucky, but I think Yushen was averaging sub 8 back then, which 5 years ago was still pretty good. I think something that added to this solve being so iconic is that it wasn't filmed, and the fact that he wasn't that well known, this caused a lot of mystery and speculation about is this solve real or not. And that's until we got the very high quality surveillance footage of the solve. When this solve first happened, basically the whole community was like, what? Literally nobody could believe it. It felt like a dream. So for that reason, it's a very iconic solve. Okay, so I've gone through the 5 solves that I put in the poll. Before I show you guys the results, here are some other solves that people suggested. JPerm's 21x21. I, as one of the only other 2x2 mains in existence, think it's the 0.47 world record single. No. Even if we're talking about 2x2 solves, Mathieu's 0.49 is way more iconic, just because it stood as the world record for so long. I don't know if we're considering big cubes or not, but Max Park's sub 1 6x6 single was pretty insane. No one thought it was even possible 3 weeks before he did it in comp. Yes, that solve is one of the most impressive of all time, but like in terms of greatness, it can't be up there because it's a 6x6 solve. Like, there's probably only 20 people in the world who truly care about 6x6. I'm just kidding. Nobody does. Max Park 363, and this is 3.63 NAR single. The reason I don't think this can be the greatest is that Yushen Du's 3.47 was faster, and it happened like 5 years prior. Like, yeah, maybe Max Park's solve was more impressive overall, but it just can't be the greatest because Yushen's solve was way more iconic, way more talked about. So in my opinion, it can't be the greatest. And someone else said Timon's 3.97, a European record single, his first one, he actually got 2. It's the exact same thing as Max Park's 3.63. Maybe it's more impressive overall than Yushen's solve, but Yushen's was just so iconic. So therefore, I don't think this Timon solve can be the greatest. Okay, it's time to go through the results of the poll. In last place, we have Eric Ackersteig's 7.08 world record single. I was so surprised by this. I thought this had a good chance of winning. I don't know, maybe my audience is just too young or something. Like how? That should not be last place at all. But anyway, in 4th place is Lucas Edler's 4.90 world record single. Anthony said, I feel bad about the 4.9 because of Keaton. Yeah, that was just a roller coaster of a day. In 3rd place is Yushen Du's 3.47. Rian said, Yushen Du, considering the sheer amount of luck needed to pull that off for what they averaged. But like I said earlier, he averaged like high 7, I think. And 5 years ago, that was like not too bad. And in 2nd place, we have Felix Zemdeg's 4.73 world record single. Cubist said, I would say Felix 4.73 because of his pyraminx and the fact that he broke it next to the previous world record holder by 0.01 seconds. So that means the greatest solve of all time, well, according to 673 people, is Timon Kolczynski's resolve in his 4.86 world record average. Yeah, fair enough. I think I agree with that. Frackadoodle made a good point here. They said the only one of these solves that the solver was under stress was Timon's. The others, while great solves, happened randomly. Timon had to force a flawless solve and he did it. And yeah, that's a really good point that I didn't think about too much. So another interesting thing, YouTube shows what percentage of the votes each option got. And Timon solve got 84% of the votes. Okay, so I have a few thoughts about this. Firstly, yeah, I think Timon solve is the best. I did not expect him to get 84% of the votes. That's ridiculous. But there's a thing in YouTube where when you're voting in a poll, you can vote for an option and then change your answer. So look, I have this poll from Ram here, and say I click on the middle option and I can see what the top one got. It got 71% of the votes. So I'm like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, that one's good. I'll click on that. like just to go for the majority. And I don't know, maybe I have a theory that maybe some people did that with my poll. Like maybe they just picked one of the other ones and then saw that Team One's one had like half the votes, and then they're like, oh actually yeah, Team One's one is good. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everyone just thinks that Team One's one is the greatest. But nevertheless, the greatest solve of all time, according to this poll, is Team One's resolve, which I do think is fair. Thank you so much to everyone who voted and commented. If you missed this poll, then I'll probably do more in the future, so keep an eye out for them. And yeah, let me know what you guys think of the results. Also, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Maybe check out Speaku Shop while you're at it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.